In order to set up a logbook, first ensure that you're on the dashboard for the logbook that requires the setup. We'll click on the Setup button. Now, on this layout, we're going to add every single item that we would like to have. So we'll start maybe with, say, suction. Go to my unit. Now, this is the first time you're setting up any items in any of your logbooks. You're going to be prompted with this message, this dialog, letting you know that, yeah, there are no units set up and you can customize the units from this layout. So it already displayed the unit of measure page. So from here, any unit of measure that you require, you just set it up in here. So we'll just say Fahrenheit. I need PSI, and maybe I'll need ppm later. Okay, and we'll drop that. Now, if I went back to my units, it's going to give me a list. I'm going to say suction pressure. And now the type is referring to the type of keyboard. Do you want to be displayed a numeric keyboard, a text keyboard, or a level list? Not a keyboard. When you're dealing with levels, you're dealing with a list. It'll show you like mid, high, low, max, values such as that. So in this case, we're going to go numeric. Hit submit, and we've officially created our first item. We're going to create a second item here called discharge. Same thing, go over to unit, hit PSI, type, I want numeric, and we'll hit submit. Okay, now we have 2 items created. Let's look at some of the options on the right-hand side. First, we have our arrows, so perhaps I don't want discharge at the top, because what you have to keep in mind is the way that you display these items, in the sequence, in the order that they are seen, is the way that they're going to be displayed on your logbook. So in this case, I want suction at the top, so I'll just hit the arrow, move it to the top, perfect. We'll move over to the right, we have a bell, so this is actually an alarm setting bell. So if you want to set some outer range alarms for this particular item, this is where you would do that. So we'll go ahead and do it for this particular one. We'll say the critical low is 10, low is 20, high is 40, and critical high is 50. We can have a custom procedure. We'll call management. Yours can be anything you like. So what you're looking at is any time that a value is entered, either low or critical low, or on the high end, you're going to be notified. You're only going to get the procedure if you fall into the critical limits. If you fall into a low or a high, the color of your text is going to change and let you know. And if you move into the critical limits, the cell changes color as well. So it's very apparent for those supervisors who have to review and sign off on the entries. They can see those problem areas. Okay, so once you're happy, make sure it's enabled. It's enabled by default once you open up an alarm setting window. Hit the X. Okay, now let's say we want to change the name of our discharge one. Maybe it's not discharge I want to call it. Maybe I want to call it head pressure. Click on discharge, and we'll just edit the name from here. So head pressure. You don't have to use the word pressure if you're using the unit PSI, but it's entirely up to you. We'll hit update. Yes, we want to replace it, and there we go. And then, of course, we have our trash can, so you can easily remove items that you no longer want. And then we have a duplicate button to make it even easier for you. So if you know that you're going to have a lot of items that are going to have, say, PSI and numeric, it make the process faster. So let's go like that. And we'll just call this one, or maybe it's head pressure, C2, or whatever your naming convention is for the items in your room, and hit update. And yes, we want to change that. All right, so you can speed through it. We do have an import option as well. So the very top right next to the home button, you can export, import, and then download the import template from our website. So if you want to do this in Excel and then just suck it in, you have that ability. So now that we've created our items, we're just going to exit. And we're going to open our logbook for the first time. So we're going to go through just a couple things, key things you really need to know. All right, so we have our setup. Let's go check our logbook. We'll open our logbook. It's generating a log entry. And we only had the 3 items, so it did it awfully quickly. So generating it, this is now the logbook for the day. So you got to keep that in mind. So I only have 3 entries. You're like, oh yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Okay, I want to go back. I want to go back to my setup, and I want to add something. So let's say we'll duplicate that head pressure, and maybe we want to call this one instead oil. So in my case, I'm not going to use the word pressure because the unit of measure tells you what it is. So oil pressure. Okay, I'm happy. I'm going to close it down, and I wanted to check out my logbook. But wait, what's happened? I now got dialog. I never got that dialog the first time. So now it's letting me know that any changes made to the logbook settings will take effect at 12 a.m. and will not affect today's entries. What that means when I open up my logbook is that I don't see it. And why don't I see it? Because you created a logbook, you generated that first entry for today. So now it's an active entry that your operators are using. So you're not able to go and modify the logbook while operators are using it, right? We can have a conflict there. So what we do is you can change your logbook settings however you like, but then on the next day, once the clock hits midnight and the next person logs in, it's gonna regenerate based on those settings. It's like turning a page in your logbook. It's gonna come back to these settings and it's gonna look at them in the order that you have them. So that's a key point. You gotta keep that in mind. So there we go. So what we've done is we've set up our logbook. See, there's our dialog again. We've set up our logbook, we generated an entry, and we understand that we cannot change an active logbook once it's been generated. We're going to have to wait till tomorrow.